Hi, this is Seth Robinson. We've been talking a lot about job roles and skills on TrendWatch so far. We're going to continue that discussion today. We're going to look specifically at the field of data. Data was something that got talked about a lot, maybe 3 to 5 years ago. Now, of course, we're all talking all AI all the time. AI needs data, but there's not as much focus on the data profession as a standalone job role or as those skills that people need to pick up. And I came across an article recently that got published a couple months ago. It was on the website Toward Data Science. And the title of the article was The Generalist, the new all-around type of data professional. What this article was getting at is this thing that we've been wrestling at with CompTIA for quite a while now, between job roles and job titles. There are an infinite number of job titles out there. And the answer to this question on the website was really about the size of the company. That at the heart of it, that's what's going to dictate the types of jobs that you're going to see at one place or another. At a very, very large enterprise, they're going to have people that specialize in niche aspects of any domain. At a small business, they're going to have a generalist. So that more than anything is really what dictates what you're going to see from one company to another. But it's not made any easier by the different job titles that everyone uses. So a data engineer at one company might be doing something very, very different from a data engineer at another company. At CompTIA, we've defined a job role taxonomy. We have job roles across all the domains of technology. But within data, we have specific job roles. And the way that we do this is we look at a lot of job postings and we try to kind of aggregate them and say, on average, what are the different types of things that we're seeing out there? And that kind of corrects for any differentiation from one company to another with the same job title. And then we come up with our definition. So in the field of data, we've got two different pathways that actually exist. One is around data management and one is around data analytics. In the data management pathway, there are three different job roles. It starts with the database administrator. This is a job role that probably a lot of people have heard about. A database administrator or a DBA is responsible for managing the data structures, managing the databases that all of this data is going into. Traditionally, a DBA worked a lot with structured data, and they worked with specific types of databases that could manage structured data. As the world has changed, they're working more with unstructured data. They might be working with multiple types of databases and making that all work together. But that's the main job. And like I said, it's an early career profession that allows somebody to get into data and then start moving from there. Within that management pathway, the next step from a database administrator would typically be a data engineer. Now, what we define as a data engineer is somebody who is taking that data once it's been stored in the databases or in the data structures, and they're beginning to manipulate it and move it towards data analysis. That might be performing extract, transform, and load or ETL type of maneuvers. It might be working with the data pipeline. It might be doing some data cleaning. All of that to get the data ready for analysis. And at a very large company, this is a huge job. And that's why they might have data engineers separate from their database administrators. At a smaller company, you might see those things mashed together, and it might be called one or the other. And then ultimately, at a larger company, you can still move on from that data engineer and become a data architect. And now this person is really defining the overall strategy. Where should data live? How do we classify it? How does it relate to the business? How do we make decisions on this? What are we ultimately trying to get out of it? So those things are happening at an architect level. That's an expert, a very advanced job role. And your smaller companies might not have that at all. Your larger companies are going to have that person sitting on top making a lot of decisions. That's just the management pathway. Over on the analytics pathway are two things that have become a lot more commonplace in the past decade or so. The first one is a data analyst. Now, on the analytics pathway, this would be the entry-level job role. Now, that doesn't mean it's quite equivalent to a database administrator. I think in what we see, typically it might take a little bit of extra training, a little bit more experience maybe to become a data analyst. There's a little bit more breadth of knowledge that's needed. So they're not exactly equivalent. We also don't hear from a lot of companies that say that they see a ton of movement between people that are doing management and people that are doing analytics. So a lot of candidates might tend to choose one pathway or the other. That's not to say that you can't ever move. It's just kind of what typically happens. So the data analyst, again, is something that has really ramped up in popularity and in demand in the past 10 years or so, as companies started to realize that there was more that they could do with their data. They could work with different types of data. It didn't just all have to be structured data going into table format anymore. And it could really help them learn from the past and predict the future. So companies started looking more and more for data analysts. And then as they got more advanced in that, the next step beyond an analyst on that pathway is the data scientist. Typically, a scientist is doing more than just ingesting the data and looking for patterns. They might actually be building statistical models. And for quite a while now, data scientists have been using machine learning to build those models. So AI is nothing new for a data scientist. They might be using generative AI now in a way that they weren't using AI 5 years ago, but they've been working with AI algorithms and probability tables and things like that for quite a while now. So those are the 5 different job roles that CompTIA defines as being within the data domain. And there's a lot of opportunity there for everyone. Now, to get back to the question that was posed by this article, are companies moving more and more towards those specializations, or are they starting to look more for generalists? And like I said at the beginning, the answer is it depends. It depends largely on the size of the company. So many companies don't have any data specialists at all. They don't have a database administrator. They're just using Excel. They might not be thinking about their data at all. They haven't even considered, is it sitting in silos in different departments, or should we collect it all together? So for that company, a data generalist is going to be the obvious first step. But definitely at your larger companies, I think you are going to continue to see these different specializations. And you'll have to sift through that a little bit to figure out what job title is talking about exactly which skills and which job responsibilities. But there's a huge opportunity in data, not just to do the analysis and building the models that companies have been doing for 5 to 10 years, but now to prepare that data to feed and train AI systems. Like I said, AI and data go hand in hand. And the more companies want to pursue and get outcomes from AI, the more they're going to have to invest in foundational data skills. If you want to learn a little bit more about the way that CompTIA looks at the world of data and the way that CompTIA looks at all job roles across technology, please visit our website at comptia.org. And I'll see you next time on TrendWatch.